It's the first Wednesday of the month, and welcome to the WED WEB Chat. I'm Kanan Chandran, the publisher of StormAsia.com, and this is our regular series of discussions on things that are topical, things that interest us, and things that we want to find out more about. So in today's session, we are looking at something that's close to our hearts, or should I say our stomachs, because it's all about food, but not so much food that you consume on a daily basis. Yes, it is, but really what goes on behind the scenes to deliver you that food. Here in Singapore, we are spoiled for choice. We've got a migrant population that has added so much flavor and content to our menus, and we've had so many other people coming in through international channels and made Singapore such a hub for fabulous food. Just as an indicator, in 2012, there were 9,662 F&B services. In 2021, that number has gone up to almost 14,000. And I'm sure it'll probably continue to rise. And of course, the hawker culture in Singapore, it's part of the first inscription on the UNESCO representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity list. So Singapore food is out there. We've got people bringing Singapore food out as well. But at the same time, we also see empty stalls in hawker centers and shop units that used to be restaurants that are now vacant. So we are seeing a major change in the industry, and that's part of the discussion. But also we want to look at some of the issues and some of the opportunities that exist. The key things are there: high costs, labor shortages, the amount of red tape, the health checks that are involved. So there's a lot of things involved in the running of a restaurant, but there are also many other things that have come in. So there are many routes into the food industry besides the kitchen and front of house. You could be an owner, in which case you want to develop, you want to scale, you want to take it overseas. There's food delivery as an option. You could be a tech developer creating apps to make things easier for you to order things from home. And then there's the softer side, the marketing aspects, the PR aspects, and you could also be part of the back end, looking at the quality standards of food in Singapore and the presentation of it. So our panelists have, for today's session, come in from different areas of the industry, and I think they will add a lot of interesting perspectives to today's discussion. So nice menu to choose from, right? So let's start with a quick introduction of our panelists. So we have Lim Hui Nan. She's a co-owner of Empire Eats Group. She was a former lawyer and is currently the business development director and chief learning officer of the group. Eric Low is the founder of Lush, Epicurean. He's got more than 30 years of international and local culinary experience, and is recognized for championing both Singapore and Teochew heritage cuisines. Christophe Megel, Executive Director, Q Industries and Trade. He's a veteran. He's been in so many aspects of the industry. 35 years of culinary and leadership experience, having worked in top restaurants like Cirque in New York, Monte Carlo in Monaco, Ritz-Carlton in Japan. Q Industries is a leading supplier and solutions provider to the hospitality industry in the ASEAN and European regions. Making up our quartet of panelists, we've got Inderpal Singh, MasterChef Singapore 2023 winner and founder of Mr. Singh Eats. An accountant by trade, Inderpal left the world on numbers to pursue his love in the kitchen. He signed up for MasterChef Season 4 in November 2022. He wanted to see how far he could progress as a chef, and he went on to win that. Let me start by just asking each of you to very quickly talk about why you got into this industry and where it's taken you and where do you think it'll head. Let's start with you, Christophe.
I was a lost young little boy. I was 14 years old. School wasn't really an option for me. My father pulled me on the side and said, listen, son, I give you three options. Option one is I send you to the army. Option number two, I send you to the mines. Option number three, you go into the kitchen. I went back, I had a thought, I said, the kitchen might sound better. That's how I got into the industry. And And I went for apprenticeship. I was very lucky to meet right away the right mentors when I realized I had some talent in this profession. And I started to like it. I put my heart and soul to it, and the rest is history.
Okay. The army didn't appeal to you?
Oh no, no. Oh no. even though the kitchen has some resemblance with the brigade, the kitchen jacket, the way the jacket of the Grand Chef looks, it's a copy of the Napoleon's army jacket. It's very regimentary, but it produces food and it doesn't kill people. So I thought that's a nicer touch.
Yes, that's a much better way to proceed with life, I think, making people happier. But you've moved from Europe into Singapore. Did that move bring about a lot of changes for you, or did you have to approach things differently?
No. My first big move, which was my biggest eye opener, is when I left Alain Ducasse in Monte Carlo at Louis XV, where our motto was zero tolerance for mistake. Any mistake is fatal. And when he sent me to Northern America to work for the Cirque, I suddenly realized that between what I've learned in Monte Carlo and what I have to do now in New York had nothing in comparison. In Monte Carlo, it was all about the food. What type of food you cook, the ingredients you select, the technique you use. At Le Cirque in New York, we were making 600 covers per service. There was no more time for me to know what was cooking, which ingredients I have to choose. We had 75 cooks in the kitchen. It was a different world. I realized then this is really a profession. You got to know what you're doing here because these are machines, So that was my first big eye-opener in terms of the industry and the capabilities of the industry. Because on one side, it was about cooking the best food in the world with the most expensive ingredients. And the other side was about how do you make some serious money with that.
But I suppose they're both ingredients for a business.
The Louis XV project in Monte Carlo was about bringing status to the Principauty of Monte Carlo because they were the only place in Europe where there was no solid 3 Michelin star restaurant. And the prince made a conscious decision to say, with the prestige of the city, I want a 3 Michelin star restaurant. So money was no object. So we had access to the best. The kitchen was 3 times the size of the dining room. In New York, it was the opposite. Money was an object. I remember the cooks at the end of the service, they would take the pots and pans and put them into a locker room because they were afraid the next day they wouldn't have them. That's how cost was managed.
Okay.
Just two different worlds in the same industry.
And when you came to Singapore, which world did you bring along?
I think I brought the world which I learned in New York. And I think from that onwards, my career was very clear. Then this is an industry where you can make some serious money. And when you join a hotel company like Ritz-Carlton, trust me, as the executive chef, you have very little time in the kitchen, very little time. It's about leadership. It's about management. It's about watching your costs. It's about running a serious business. Imagine in Japan, I had 480 chefs under my wing. That is huge. We used to produce $95 million of food and beverage revenue a year. This is a serious machine. So you have to be business savvy. And I think, actually, for me, the kitchen was the best business school I have ever attended.
So, okay. We'll come back to some of these points that you raised, but let's just move on to Eric. Tell us a bit about your entry into this industry.
Okay. All right. So I also got in quite early. Basically, started off with a mistake in secondary school streaming. So for one thing, I always tell myself is that, and the younger generation of cookers, I'm one person that refused to allow myself to become the byproduct of the Singapore education system, So in those days, I know that I'm pretty much a art subject person, but then somehow the way the school system was that they would just stream those with better academic results into the pure science stream. And that was how I got my first taste of such a mistake. And I just didn't like the subject and I didn't do well. So, but I still managed to scrape through my O levels with pretty good results, enough to go to college. But I knew that none of the subjects in A levels was interesting for me. So at the age of 16, when everybody was aspiring to go to poly or going to college, I chose to do culinary art. And my dad almost fainted because of that. It's like, my sister was a typical byproduct of the educational system, the Singapore dream of going to college and then going to the local U and everything and getting your honors, your whatever certification and stuff. But I just wanted to go into culinary because by that time I was very interested. Both of us were latchkey kids, so that's how I started to experiment and cook in the kitchen. And I found that I could take to it. Of course, I wasn't in the reality picture yet, but I'm still going to culinary school and then going for internship, and then really into the real world of cooking professionally. Then it also opened up me to quite a few things. And I'm someone that always tried his game to take on the unconventional path in this career. So a bit like Christophe, we set our own challenges. So after internship, after graduation and internship, when everybody is jumping into fine dining restaurants and hotels, I chose an unconventional path because I had a great leader to follow. So I chose to go into volume catering. Catering, as in those days, Singapore catering standards were not as high as now. Now we can see catering producing standards that's the same as 5-star hotels and stuff like that. But in those days, the catering was more about management volume, how you handle and deal with different types of cuisines from demanding customers. And of course, being a small team, you also learn to grow very fast. One thing about working in kitchens is that if the team is small and constantly short-handed, as an individual, you grow up much faster than being working in a full team, because a lot of things will be thrown into your path, and like it or not, you pick it up, and in that process, you pick up a lot of things much faster, and that also set the pace for me to grow in a different way, such that it prepared me for the major change in my career path, is going overseas to work. Something that I find that a lot of Singaporeans are not that keen. I don't know for whatever reason, but maybe you are very comfortable back in our home, in our own country. But going overseas, basically, I ended up in exactly the place that Christophe was at. Also, I ended up in Monaco, but a little bit different. I wasn't working in a land-based restaurant there, but I ended up working in a private jet that were just outside the restaurant. And these people are all the high net worth people, the royalties, the celebrities. So quite also a high pressure job. Skeletal team, feeding the guests on board as well as taking care of the crew. So landed a job that had to look after 16 guests on a 100 over meter yacht, and we have about 80 crew working around the clock. So the job responsibilities was quite intense, and then we may have 16 guests on board, but we can have as many as about 8 to 10 menus in one dining session. That means lunch, you can have 8 menus for 16 different guests. Everyone has their own menu, and then you have each menu has like maybe 4 or 5 courses. So it was also quite a high pressure job. And in those kind of environments, most of the things that you do, it's also something towards fine dining sometimes, and of course the daily casuals, and also a lot of unexpected changes. So it was quite a challenging job. That was quite interesting because it taught me a lot of things about adaptation. And being Asian, when you go to Europe to re-look at the whole world of Western cooking versus what you have learned in culinary schools back in Asia. I mean, our culinary education system is based on Western format of cooking. But when you relearn the whole thing again when you are in Europe, as what Christophe has said, being in Monaco, you also want a place that has very high quality ingredients available to you, and also the right kind of ingredients. Because, like, for example, in the culinary school in Singapore, we cook French onion soup with Bombay onions, or onions that are from China. And it's very different when you when you manage, using Spanish onions or other European type of onions to cook your onion soup, and then the profile changes and you relearn the whole recipe all over again and get new experiences. So that really made me, cement my thoughts about staying in this profession and what it can bring. I spent a good 5.5 years in Europe, around the whole entire Mediterranean region. Yeah.
And then,
So
how did your interest in Teochew and Singapore heritage cuisine come about?
Yeah, that came in the latter half, because being in Europe for so long, especially on board a yacht, there were very few Asian chefs on board those mega yachts based in Europe. And each time the guest or the owner comes on board and they see an Asian face, the first thing they'll tell you that, okay, I don't want to eat Western food on board. I don't want to eat European cuisine on board anymore. I want you to, bring out whatever Asian stuff you can prepare, whether it's Singapore, Thai, Vietnamese, Malaysian, Indian, or whatever, as long as it's something out from the Asian context. So yeah, so I realized that, sometimes when you're out of your own country and you go to a foreign place, your own heritage cuisine becomes one of your most valuable assets, because you are bringing culture, way of dining and new taste profiles, and introducing to everyone that you meet along the way when you're over there. So I had a chance to go back to school again, went back to CIA in Napa Valley, and then a lot of the presentations I did was based on my own heritage food. And then I came back, I realized that, there are very little chefs in Singapore that wants to champion their own heritage cuisine. So I decided that probably have a go at it. And also because the job that I got when I came back, it was in R&D, and then it was also mainly Asian cuisine focused. So I found that my calling there to switch over. And of course, with my own heritage cuisine, I decided that I should champion it as well, because Teochew cuisine is also a sunset in cuisine in Singapore. There are hardly any young chefs that want to take over from the seniors. And I realized that if we don't take on it, it's something that's going to be lost. And upon doing that, I also went back to my ancestral roots and found many new things that what my grandparents used to cook, because they used to own a Chinese banquet restaurant as well. And then we did a lot of outside catering, and then I could talk to a lot of seniors in Singapore about those who have eaten my grandfather's food. Find that, we are really losing a lot. Many of the recipes that I've showcased in the past Teochew related events, brought back a lot of memories for a lot of chefs, also my friends and my relatives. Yeah, so I felt the calling was there. Yeah.
Okay, when you were on the yacht, which was the most popular Asian food that you had to serve?
You'll be surprised, the often dish I get to present is always fried rice. In the Western world, fried rice is like very one-dimensional. They only look at it as Chinese fried rice. But then, coming out from my own kitchen on board, my guests gets to enjoy a lot of things, because they get to enjoy the Thai version of fried rice, the Chinese version of fried rice, the yang chow fried rice, and the Japanese, gohan, which is the garlic fried rice, and then you have nasi goreng. Nasi goreng itself, there's so many permutations. You have nasi goreng kampung, nasi goreng pattaya, and everything. So they realize that, fried rice is actually all over Asia, from Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, Singapore, Malaysia, India. Everywhere there is fried rice. There's a fried rice dish. And from my kitchen, they didn't get bored of it. So that was always the frequent request, And and another easy dish for them to adapt is anything with a sweet and sour profile. Cantonese based style, sweet and sour. You do it with any kind of profile, with vinegar and sugar, with fruit juice or whatever. It just works for them. It's very easy for them to adapt. Then when there's an opportunity, I'll try to educate them with more complex dishes, introducing them to the chili crabs and all the sambal dishes and curries and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, nice. We'll come back to some of those things that you've raised as well. Pinan, how about yourself?
Hi. So thank you for having me again. I think maybe I'll start off by saying that I'm naturally a very curious person. So I think this in itself anchored my trajectory in my last career, as well as the one that I currently have right now. And so I think back in law, I was an intellectual property practitioner. So I was managing trademark portfolios. And one of the most fulfilling aspects of my legal job back then was really learning about the businesses of small business owners and interacting with them, hearing their stories on the front line. But my experience with that was always that, I felt like I was advising on the peripheral of the meat of things. And over the course of my legal career, I got to meet my partner in business and in life, as I like to introduce him. And, I started to help him a little on the side, as well as, continue my legal career. But I think, it reached a point where I had to make a decision for personal reasons as to whether, I want to focus on my legal trajectory or focused on the business with him. So I think when the business was finally ready to support both of us, that was when I decided to take the leap. So that was back in 2014. So, and I think, over from 2014 till now, my partner has given me great opportunities to explore the operational side of things. So, as somebody who was very detail oriented, I think I navigated to roles where, if it's like setting up a new space, I would be the one liaising with the contractors, because I derive great joy in poring over floor plans, and poring over details with my chefs, really going down to understanding how the process is in terms of developing the menu, understanding the workflow of things for them, because I do think that it is very important that we support the team on that front to make sure that, with any new request that comes from the top, it needs to be able to be implemented smoothly and efficiently and sustainably. I think that's really important. So I think that has been my last 10 years with Empire Eats Group. And in the last couple of years, because of this curiosity in me, I've also decided to explore building my learning and development competencies. And that's really thanks to COVID. So during COVID, one of the government support was, absentee payroll support. So I think encouraging Singaporeans and locals to take the opportunity to upskill. And I felt that, as somebody who has to do, request my team to do that, I have to be alongside them doing that as well. So I was in causes with them because I think that, that's what we should do as leaders. So through that process, I discovered that I thrive in a learning environment. And I was getting more curious about the, learning and development, curriculum development opportunities in this field and the idea of like workplace learning. So in the last couple of years, I've also been looking at building a workplace learning consultancy business that taps on both my legal and my entrepreneurial experience. So so this is where I am now.
Okay. And your restaurants are all Japanese themed?
Yes, predominantly, we do have a American cocktail bar, Secret Mermaid. So that would be the one that is very close to my partner's heart. As he's from America, and we started it out as a tasting room for the craft American spirits that we imported back then. Right now, yes, we're fully morphed into a full-fledged cocktail bar. We do for the other concepts that we have, standing sushi bar. It started out as a hole in the wall. It started out as a standing concept, but we very quickly learned that a lot of Singaporeans want to sit down as they eat. So with that, we introduced many bar stools to address this need. And shortly after that, we developed Tanuki Raw. So it's like a fusion Japanese-American cuisine. That has been the one that we have been very keen to look at exploring in terms of like franchising and expansion overseas. Of late, we also had Seven Samurai which I think you're familiar with. It's a salmon-focused concept building on our expertise in this particular fish, which we love to call Singapore's national fish. Everybody loves the salmon. So yeah, we have that. In the last since 2021, during COVID, one of the things that we created was this sushi omakase concept called Shinsora with our head chef that we have been working with for more than a decade. So this was a project that's very close to my heart because, I knew that he had been very keen to explore starting his own business. And this was accelerated. This desire was accelerated when he went to Japan to participate in World Sushi Cup competition in 2018, and he emerged the champion. So I think as the opportunity as the opportunity arose, we were able to collaborate on it, and we decided to work on it together. But I think I want to talk about so it is interesting to see that the way that we approached building that brand was very different, tapping on our experience since 2009. So I think with that, I really realized that it is actually really important to Singapore is a place where it is expensive to build a F&B project, brick and mortar F&B project, and to start. One, we're looking at significant resources that has to be invested in the fit out, in the just to secure a location itself in Singapore. So I'll share a bit more about that later. And I think too, it's like the bulk of the work leading up to building awareness in such a competitive and I would say noisy environment means that the cost of operating in the first few months in a brick and mortar space becomes very, very expensive and could be highly prohibitive if you do not have the funds to support that trajectory. So I think one of the things we decided was we'll take the approach of building a minimum viable product. So it's about investing resources into developing the brand. So what we did was we did a shop-in-shop concept where it's in a way operating out of our existing space. So it's still part of what we're currently doing and really investing time and effort into building awareness and the resources that we had was channeled towards building market awareness for the brand and the chefs.
Okay. All right, cool. So it's a process of ongoing learning. It sounds like really picking up things as you move along. Great. So let's get to Inderpal. You're the newbie on the scene. So what are your thoughts? How did you get into this? Why did you choose this?
First of all, once again, thank you so much, Mr. Chandran, for having me on this esteemed panel. Just listening to the introductions, I've already, taken so many notes as to, how I want to possibly develop something in the future. I start out as an accountant. I worked for the government for about 3 years, and it was going nowhere. It just felt like the same rut day in, day out. It is auditing, so it is the same rut day in, day out. And and then COVID came, and during COVID, I look left and I look right. I see a lot of my fellow auditors either leaving or being told that they're obsolete because things are progressing, especially with COVID. And so I decided to take the leap, and I quit my job. And I just posted it on my Instagram that, hey, I'm selling butter chicken and chapati, and if anybody wants to buy it, let me know. So I think the important thing for me was timing. It wasn't just when the circuit breaker had hit. It was somewhere in June where everybody was already at home, stuck at home, and everybody was, sick and tired of McDonald's. So it was very important to hit at that right time. And I was overwhelmed with the amount of orders that we got. So much so that I actually started hiring Punjabi ladies who I knew of sitting at home to cook the chapatis for me because I couldn't deal with the amount of chapati orders. So I would wake up every day at about 3 a.m. and cook like maybe 25 kilos of butter chicken. and then drive all around the island, pick up chapatis and deliver them all over the island as well. And that became a platform for me to realize that, hey, this could be something that, people want. And then I started taking some requests, learned from a lot of mistakes. At one point in time, I had 30 items on my home delivery menu, which is ridiculous. And I learned very quickly that if you try to go too diverse, you sort of lose your identity as to what your food is. And then you end up waking up at 1 a.m. instead of, 3 a.m. as well. So I learned quickly about that. And then as COVID lifted and people started going out, I actually saw a post that was directed to me because I've eaten at this restaurant many times. They were looking for hands. So I actually applied for a kitchen hand job to try to see if I can make it in the professional scene. But the chef said that, the kitchen hand side is pretty full. We need you in the front of the house, but hey, you will learn a lot. So I actually went from being a qualified accountant to being a front of house manager for about a year and a half. And the chef was not wrong. I learned a lot, learning just how the business is run from running the past at the fine dining restaurant. And I was part of the team that actually achieved its first Michelin star. So that was a great achievement for me and the team. And that itself, again, gave me the contacts, the networks to explore, further into this industry. And I made some good friends in that restaurant. And a couple of times I even went to do private dinings with them that were, again, well received. And then it came a point where I was too afraid to make the jump into a full restaurant using my own funds. But at the same time, I sort of didn't want to let go of the industry. And then lo and behold, I switched on Channel 5 watching Wheel of Fortune and the MasterChef ad was there. And so I said, you know what, let's just apply. I probably won't get in. And then I did, and I won. And since then, it's been a roller coaster. I've met some amazing people. The judges themselves are so, they're such strong advocates for young chefs coming up, as well as, Chef Eric said about heritage cuisine, about bringing forward your heritage. Singapore is a melting pot of, so many different cultures, which brings the question of where is the line between fusion cuisine and heritage cuisine? I think that is the most common question that everybody asks in Singapore. But I think Singapore's fusion cuisine is its heritage cuisine. It's because we have so many migrants from all over the world coming from the time of World War II all the way till now. People are still migrating from different parts of the world to Singapore. And that is affecting, in a good way, our cuisine and what we see as, like Chef Eric also said earlier, about just nasi goreng. There's so many versions of it. There's so many different styles that you can bring forward. So as of right now, that's where my journey is. I'm slated to go on a tour of somewhere in Asia as well to bring Singaporean cuisine over. So I'm excited about that, and hopefully I do it justice. Yes, that's where I am at right now.
Okay, great. So for you, Inderpal, you when you got in, you found success fairly quickly, be it your butter chicken or MasterChef, and now you are able to do things on your own. Although, of course, you are starting out. For many, they would come in at a much lower level, have to struggle for a long period of time before they work their way up through the kitchen, right? Is getting that much fame and accolades too soon an advantage or a disadvantage, you reckon? Feel free, the others, to chime in, because I think this is something some of you would have gone through as well.
For me personally, I feel it's a double-edged sword. So after the shooting process of MasterChef, before it started airing, one of the food advisors to the show was Chef Dave Pint of Burn Ends. And he got in contact with me and said, hey, if you want to get some real kitchen experience, let me know. And I said, yeah, it's Burn Ends. Why wouldn't I, right? And then I went down to Burn Ends, and the expectations of me knowing a lot of things just because I was on MasterChef was very high. But a lot of people sort of just forgot that, hey, like just a year ago, this guy was an accountant, and So it took a while to get going with the team. The team's amazing, but that's just it. The team is so amazing that at some point in time you start feeling like, oh my God, am I a burden to the team? Am I really helping the team here? But they're so generous with how they share knowledge. They just want you to be better for the team. They want you to grow as much as possible. And despite me being there only about 6 months, they still reach out to me, talk to me, check up on me, how I'm doing, what I'm up to. And when I have new menu ideas, I run it by them and they tell me, oh, this will work, that won't work. You probably can do that. That's going to be expensive. Here is the supplier that we use. You can contact them. It's I think that is the most holistic way you can approach this journey. If you find the right people, like Chef said earlier as well, like he got very lucky with the right mentor at the right time. I think Chef Dave and Chef Patrick at Burnens were really the best mentors I could have asked for coming out of the competition, going into this new industry. And they're still great friends. They still ask me how I'm doing and all that. I think it's so important. Okay. But on the flip side of it, the expectation of, hey, you should know how to do this, you should know how to do that part is tough.
I think if I just may add to Inderpal, having been in the education scene for more than 10 years in Singapore, I've seen a lot of young aspiring cooks, okay? Because that's what you are when you start, okay? Coming to the school and picking up the craft and being very passionate about it. And the first thing they had in mind afterwards was to set up a restaurant. And in my mind, I said, wow, you are mad, man. You are totally mad. Go out there, get your hands dirty. But I'm the Jurassic one because that's the old school of thoughts. The new school of thoughts is very different. Never mind. I learn as I go. I make mistakes. I learn from it. I fall down. I stand up. And that's a younger generation. That's one trend I see today. The second trend I see today is learning the craft has taken a very different course. The way the craft used to be taught and the way people acquire it today is very different. When I went to culinary school or apprenticeship, okay, there was no YouTube channel, okay? There was barely an internet, okay? There was no access to information. The only access of information you had was the boss, which was standing next to you. And if he wouldn't share with you and you couldn't pick it up on time, you were gone. So the pressure was on. So it's a very different context today. Today, you want to learn anything, you go to Google and within an hour, you are knowledgeable. You are not a master, but you're knowledgeable. And I think the third thing which is happening right now and which is tremendous, and I don't think our industry has felt the pinch yet, but it's coming really fast, is the technological revolution. And that's going to definitely change the face of our business. So that's my viewpoint on this topic.
Yeah, I think, Christophe, you make a really good point about that. And I think that's something that, was really anticipated when we look at the job transformation map developed for Singapore, for food services in Singapore, right? And I think they identified three key trends, right? One, that, on top of like increased technological adoption, and greater competition for workers, one of the things that they also identified was that consumer preferences are shifting. So there's a growing demand, and I don't know whether you experienced that, but for personalized and experiential services. So I think I personally see that trend of, shifting from food as a product to food as an experience. And, the incorporation of, technological experiential dining experiences, I think that also becomes part of what you're sharing, that level of it's not just about eating the food per se, but diners expect a lot more, and I think it stems from what you shared as well. There's greater they are starting to learn a lot on YouTube, on social media, and I think they bring that kind of expectations to the dining experience. And I personally feel that there is a growing demand for edu dining experiences where learners want to learn as they dine. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm totally with you. And I think our biggest upper threat today is this thing. Everybody has it. Today, when somebody sits down in a restaurant and he looks at a wine list, they size you up within seconds. If you are in the game to skin them or if you are in an honest F&B game, they will know.
Everybody's on Vivino.
Everything is transparent today. So if you ask me, from the day I entered the industry, where the industry is today, it has transformed drastically
Yes.
in every form and shape, and even in the direction it is going. But I think the worst changes have yet to come.
Yeah. I
Chef,
think
you keep saying the worst changes, so I assume that you feel the changes are bad.
No,
sounds like it.
Okay, Inderpal. If I go into a 5-star hotel, the last thing I want to have knocking at my door is a little robot bringing my bath towel. You understand what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. The worst has yet to come. But will it come? Unfortunately, yes. There is no choice. At the rate this industry is growing, who's going to do the job? I mean, if you're already complaining today, there's not enough manpower, what's going to happen in 10 years from now?
So I think there is a movement, right, that, within operators where we feel that you can't take the man out of hospitality. You can have service. Yeah, service and hospitality is two different things altogether. I mean, they're related, but you need that human touch when it comes to hospitality. And I personally feel so strongly about that we need to have that human touch to value and appreciate their presence in our restaurants. And how do we make it not just like a competent experience, but a memorable one for them? And that is not something a robot can do.
Correct.
And I think
Not
that's
yet.
where I think we would still need that human touch. And I think another point is also, with that, where everybody has so much information at hand, I think the onus is all the more on us as operators, as food service ambassadors, I would say, to upskill and grow our own knowledge and expertise. So one of the things that we do at our group is we actually strongly encourage our team members to pursue their respective domain knowledge and interests. So, whether it's about participating in World Sushi Cup competitions in Tokyo or Tales of the Cocktail conferences in New Orleans, we think that it's really important for them to grow their competency in the knowledge in the ingredients that we source and share from a position of expertise. Like personally, I attended the Japanese tea master course in Kyoto, and took the Kikisakeshi course, right? Because I think that it is important for me to know if I want to be able to sell something competently in this market now, especially in Singapore, we need to be able to share from a point of expertise.
I noticed that especially in last year, there's a changing shift in the customer's expectation again. When COVID broke out and the government, encouraged the use of robots to solve manpower issues and also to mitigate the spread of the potential spread of the virus and everything. And it was the first time that robotics were used in F&B service. And there's always this, what we call the novelty period, where customers didn't mind so much about, robot serving the food. And then given that you were in a COVID mental state, people could more or less accept it. But now that we are out of it, people realize that robots are just basically robots. And if you go to a restaurant and you have to pay 10% service charge, and you're being served by a robot that cannot bring you the little things that you want, people will start to have different expectations again. And this is all changing now because, of course, the GST increase is just a rub-in. But, you ask anybody that dines out frequently, they look at it, is that now they see the whole bill as a 20% increase, but they're not getting value in terms of service, and the robots don't really bring everything properly. If let's say at the loading point in the kitchen, the person who loads the food onto the robot to serve it out doesn't make it doesn't put all the right condiments to go with the dish or whatever, and then the robot goes out and the customer is not happy because doesn't get everything that he wants. So I feel that customers' expectations are really changing again. 2023, 2024, with all this increase in extras that customers are paying, they will demand more. They will demand a lot more, in fact.
I think that we have a very demanding clientele in Singapore anyway, right? Whether it's at the high or the low end. So what is one thing that what piece of advice you would give somebody trying to get into this F&B space, trying to do a startup? What sort of strategy would be the most suitable for somebody trying to start something now?
I think the first thing I would tell him is F&B is not a startup business. I mean, that one I'm damn clear, okay? Because it's not about trial and errors, okay? You got to be clear about what you want to do. What is your concept going to be? Can you afford to do it? Like what we told earlier about capital cost, etc., and is it sustainable? So it's not a startup, okay? It's not a business where you can win millions and millions until you're going to see some profit. It doesn't work like that. So I think that's the first advice I would give him. The second advice I would give him, I say, hey, dude, this is not a hobby, okay? This is a profession, okay? A profession, okay? Now, if you want to burn cash, okay, go jolly well, have fun, okay? But actually, it is a profession. You have to be professionalized. By the way, do you know that now in Europe, you need to have a license to operate a restaurant? You have to be professionally trained before you can even claim to operate one. I think Singapore maybe want to look at that, you know? So we avoid to have all the bad apples around. We're just here to disturb the market, but we have real professionals setting up real restaurants, real F&B destinations. That would be a great movement to start. I don't know what you think, but that's my viewpoint.
I just want to add on a little bit of what Christophe was mentioning. The perfect recipe for restaurant disaster is you get a bunch of non-F&B investors who think they have a lot of extra money to throw in, and then you get one guy who's F&B passionate, you know, to run the show, and then they set all kinds of unrealistic ROIs and expectations, like, you know, they want to bring in the money, get back the capital within a couple of months, bring in the money and then start to multiply, open up multiple outlets. You know, sometimes it's just not that, it's just that not realistic in a way, you know. I mean, many new F&B owners do not realize that the real money only comes in after 2-3 years of hard work. And that's when you have a sustainable client and returning customers big enough to keep supporting you. And customer loyalty in Singapore is always a big question, a real big question. I think Winan should be able to relate to that. You know, how many people come for the first time and then you don't see them again?
You have to work really hard to
grow your
regulars.
Food is not good. It's not because your food is not good or your service is not good. You know, Singaporeans have. Singaporeans, I feel that they're always curious. They move on very fast. You know, what we call in Cantonese that the new toilet bowl is always more exotic. You know, so they always want to check it out. You know, if you understand what we Cantonese people always say, the new toilet bowl is always more exotic. So they want to move on fast quickly. But they also, I feel that sometimes they also do not know where the benchmark reference is. Like, you know, my parents, when they bring us out for hawker food in our childhood days, they will tell us, this is the best, this is the good one, this is where you get a good reference of the taste expectations. So we get an education, a live education on the spot on that. And it registers in our head, okay, this is the best mee pok that we have eaten in Singapore, this is the best beef noodles, this is the best char kway teow or whatever. But kids nowadays, the younger generation, the taste buds, they don't care. They only want to try new things. This is my observation. I don't know, maybe for Winan, you know, you can see that trend as well, you know, in your customer profile.
Definitely. I mean, we do see, you know, the demographic that is about clocking the new experiences, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's about understanding that at the start you will get this demographic, and then, you know, as you progress, you get the people who like it will come back, the repeat customers in a way. Yeah. But you know, I think what I really my biggest takeaway, and I think I speak from a previous legal standpoint, you know, like as an ex-lawyer, you know, I speak from that perspective. I think it's really important to know your rights as you know, given that in Singapore, when you operate as a brick and mortar restaurant, that your biggest cost is in rent. I think it is really important for us to know our rights as a tenant and business owner. And I think, you know, this goes back again to how during COVID, one of the best development that came out of that, one of the good things that emerged from COVID was how it shone a spotlight on the exacerbation of leasing practices in Singapore in the past decade, right?
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
think it's
yeah,
to the detriment of tenants. But I think with the advocacy of a tenant-led cooperative, I think SGTAF, I don't know whether you'll be familiar with, and other business associations like SBF, RAS, SRA, and ASME, the advocacy led by this collective of associations and cooperative, it created an awareness of this imbalance in terms of like negotiating power. And because of that, the government passed into law the Lease Agreement for Retail Premise Act that mandates compliance for landlords of qualifying lease premises with this code of conduct. And as somebody who has operated in Singapore since 2009, I can say that this piece of legislation is a monumental first step towards a fair and balanced lease negotiation process. So I think this goes a long way to support the growth of like businesses, small businesses, especially in the long run. And, it only recently kicked in on 1st of Feb this year. So it became mandatory. A lot of the big mall tenants have onboarded, but I think that, there's still a number of small companies, tenants and landlords that may not be aware of it. So this is something I feel really strongly about. I think we need to know what are our rights under this code of conduct now, because that changes a lot of things for us. I'll give an example.
I think you're spot on. Sorry, you're spot on. And not just for that, for a lot of things, because the abuse is just horrendous. And from a landlord point of view, they are so rude and shrewd. Wow, you can be eaten alive sometimes. Sorry to interrupt.
I mean, I think it's important, at the end of the day, the conduct, and spirit of negotiations has to be built on respect, and it has to be a very transparent, approach to it. But I think what's really important, like there are really a few important things that, developments, right, under this code of conduct, like even like, previously, I don't know whether your experience was, you had to pay the legal fees for of the landlords for drafting the lease agreement. So we had to pony up and pay that, right? But, it is under this code of conduct, it is now mandated that this cost is part of the landlord's business cost of operating its business. So I think we need to know that, there are all these changes that has now kicked in, but we need to educate ourselves on that. So, like if one advice I could give, before you sign a lease, go do your market research, go look up historical rental data and understand your rights under code of conduct now, because this is a very new development. And I think when you look at like new spots, we need to understand that we can review our lease terms to make sure that it's compliant with this. It should be compliant if it's a qualifying lease premise.
Oh, very good point that you raised, Inderpal, hearing all this, how do you feel about setting up your own restaurant?
Well, thank you so much for that. I've actually taken a lot of notes, and Chef Christophe, I love the animation coming out from it. I can see the passion coming through as to, obviously you've been burned by many.
Oh boy.
Unfortunately,
my clients.
And I can imagine how that is. But the thing that shows me is the fact that you and Chef Eric are still sitting here shows that the resilience of this industry is actually there. And I think with Yunan, she's actually highlighted a lot of amazing things that I really was not aware of. Like you say, it's really not out there. Sometimes I feel that is a bit of while we have so much information, I think we have an information overload with our phones and everything, right? But all of this important information gets lost in translation. Just coming back to what Chef Eric said about, like how our parents used to tell us in the previous generations that this is where the best is, this is where that is, this is where the best of that is. I'll give you a simple example of like, if I were to open a biryani shop tomorrow, selling fish biryani, I will get the clout immediately because, the MasterChef opened something. Okay, great. That'll be great for the first 2 months. And then in the third month, people will be like, okay, the fish biryani is good, but Sami's fish is better. Apollo's fish curry is better. The raita at Jaggi's is better. And that's where you start losing your clientele. But I think the thing about how we have evolved in COVID and devolved as human beings is our short attention spans. And that has messed our brains up, like to a large extent, right? In fact, I don't see many people from my age group or younger who would be able to sit through this seminar. In fact, they're all used to the 6-second reels and, or, what's flashy, what's interesting, and where's the latest trend. I need to eat this because it's on TikTok. That's it. Nobody.
Social media content generation. That's what they're all
Yes.
looking for.
Actually, social media is you feed your camera first now, right?
Yeah,
Before you feed
the
yourself.
camera eats first. Before anyone, Mark Zuckerberg eats. Instagram gets to know what you're eating first, right? Before anyone else.
Check out the new place.
Yeah, exactly.
To get content.
Exactly. And, as F&B owners, potential, restaurateurs, or even chefs, you sit down, and I'm sure Chef Christophe, Eric, and even Hunan can get that. Like, you spend close to like $250,000 on your interiors and everything, but people don't care. They just want to take that quick photo that is flashy, and then the food comes up. And you talked about automation. If a robot is bringing me my plate of food, compared to a chef who's coming and pouring the sauce for me, that is an experience for me, and that sort of constitutes the 10% service charge compared to if a robot is just delivering it to the table. But the trend is evolving as humans, but also we are devolving with the amount of how much we are allowing social media to affect our lives in that sense.
The point you made about social media is really interesting, because we actually see that shift in terms of job role expectations. So if you look at, with the recent movement by the government for career change progression, like the CCP plans, right? And you look at how there's actually a movement where they're pushing for service crew to become service ambassadors. And when you look at the expanded job roles that comes under service ambassadors, one of the tasks is actually simple content creation or curation on social media platform to assist business promotion. So a very basic know-how in digital marketing now, even for front of house service staff, may very soon become an expectation in the industry that we operate in.
So my question in response to that is, if you have in 2021, when everybody was locked up at home, when social media creation was to take a really great photo of what you're selling so it can be delivered, compared to now how we have evolved to the point of we use social media, the man hours that are required to create that one reel that people are going to see for maybe 11 seconds, does it really justify your business costs? And that's going to get worse. It's going to become more.
Sure.
It's going to need to become more elaborate. The reels are just going to become more and more and more and more. Even not reels, like even TikToks. Like, I see chefs jumping on board or on all the trends, and it's the way it is, right? Everyone is doing the chef TikTok dancers, and everybody's doing, like, Chef Pierre is famous on Instagram, always scolding his you need comedy, and you need a bit of satire to bring
the entertainment factor.
Yeah, it's an entertainment factor, right? But how much did that cost Chef Pierre? We really don't know, right?
Inderpal, that's why I told you earlier, the worst has yet to come when it comes to the technological revolution.
Well, hopefully there's a robot who can do all of that for us, right?
There might be.
You would be surprised. We're working on a project right now in our industry through chatbot and AI. You would be astonished what you're capable of doing.
Oh no, I'm very sure. I'm afraid of the future, right? Sarah Connor is here already.
Hey, it's been fantastic having you guys here. We've overrun by a chunk, but hey, we've been having fun. Fabulous comments and views and thoughts, and look into the future and look into the past. Inderpal, Christophe, Hinan, and Eric, thank you for joining the session and adding so much ingredients to the menu and the recipes. A lot to take away. This, as somebody pointed out a bit earlier in the discussion in the audience, requires another session maybe. But I think certainly there's so many things to discuss about the industry that it could well merit a further discussion at some point. But already what you've raised points to, I'm not sure whether it's a bright or a bleak future for your industry. Hopefully the food still tastes good at the end of all of that, for those who value that rather than looking at it in pictures. But I just hope that you guys continue to do well in whatever areas that you are involved in. Inderpal, you're going to start up. Christophe and Eric, in the areas that you've been doing in consulting and building brands, and Venan with your array of restaurants as well. And thanks for all the legal background and information. I think that's very useful for the industry and in general knowledge as well. Once again, thank you, and hope it's all looking nice and rosy ahead. Fingers crossed.